Welcome to the Momentum Ministry Partners podcast. This podcast is designed to provide momentum in our God-given roles of leadership as we partner together to equip today's Christian leaders for tomorrow's opportunities. Whether you're a pastor, youth leader, ministry volunteer, parent, or student, we want to be your go-to and most trusted resource for equipping and encouragement when it comes to your ministry and leadership influence. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Momentum Ministry Partners podcast. My name's Eric. I'll be your host for today's conversation. I have with me today Victoria Mcallister. Victoria,
hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm excited about this because this conversation today was kind of born out of something that you and I had a chance to talk about months back.
Yeah.
And I learned one of the things that you were doing as a result of a project that you had. So before we dive into all that, let me give our listeners a brief introduction about you. And if you're willing, we'll play a quick game together. I'm throwing a curveball at you right out the gate. So, all right, let's do that. Victoria is the creator of Heaven's Roar, which is a social media platform aimed at helping equip Gen Z and Gen Alpha to make Jesus make sense to their peers, and then even to offer discipleship and influence and next steps in what you call their third place. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But Victoria, tell us a little bit about yourself and what Heaven's Roar is, where people could even find you.
Okay, so I am currently a content creator. So I recently launched a company called VM Creative, and it provides just content creation for businesses and events such as weddings or really any type of business event. And we also dabble in the social media marketing and just anything that has to do with social media and creation. Nice. And so I love creating and I love editing and I love the space of social media and that platform. And so anything that has to do with video and editing and graphic design and website, anything that has to do with the aesthetic side of that, I am all in for. And so I enjoy just anything that has to do with that. And along with that, I'm the creator and founder of Heaven's Roar, like you said. Yeah. And it is an organization that is all online, and it's focused on just helping Gen Z and Gen Alpha understand that they can have an impact in the lives of people who they have influence over just because of this space of social media and where they are. And so that is what Heaven's Roar is. And that name actually comes from, I'll give you a little insight of what the name is. So Heaven's Roar comes from the idea of like when the Bible talks about like heaven rejoicing when somebody comes to know Jesus. So us as believers will hear heaven roar. So Heaven's Roar comes from when Jesus is made known to somebody. So
I love that.
People using Gen Z, young people using social media to help people understand who Jesus is. And in turn, we get to hear Heaven's Roar.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, before we dive real deep into all of this, like the online world and the things that you're gifted at and that God's using you in, I figured let's let the audience get to know who you are a little bit better. All right. Okay. So we're going to throw some rapid fire questions at you here. We'll go easy first. Okay. What song lives in your head rent free at the moment?
It's a new song by Lauv, Lauv. I don't know how you say that. I think his name's like Lauv. And it's in a movie. It's in a kid's movie. I'm not sure of the name.
Nice.
But it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll have to make the audience look that one
up.
Yeah,
go look up Lauv's new song.
What movie is it in? Do you know the name?
No, I don't know.
It's
like a Disney movie. So
Okay. Like a new movie or like an old one?
Yeah, I think it's a newer, relatively new. But I just heard the song for the first time the other day.
And it was super catchy.
This is pretty good.
Nice. So. All right. That's good. What are the top 3 apps that you use on your phone? And don't give me like texting or like the Bible app. I'm sure you're like, give me something unique.
Okay, so the first one is going to be the Reminders app.
Ooh.
The Reminders app is super helpful. It's an Apple app that comes with your phone, but I use it actually more of like a list app because you can check off things and it will actually disappear off the list, which is super helpful, but then you can go back and look at it. So that's the top one that I use. And then probably TikTok, which is kind of basic. And then you said not messaging, so probably Instagram.
Instagram. All right. There you go.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. What was a recent pop culture light bulb moment for you?
Pop culture light bulb moment?
Do you know what I mean by that?
No, I don't. Can you explain?
Like something that you learned in pop culture that you didn't know before.
Oh.
Like you learned what like a slang word was, or you learned who Usher was during the halftime.
Okay, can I actually talk about the fact that me and one of my best friends only watched that football game, not because of Taylor Swift, but because we thought Justin Bieber was going to perform with Usher, and we were sadly let down. So that is probably
all
what.
Right. There you go. I did see rumors going around that like people were saying Justin Bieber is going to be, There's probably a lot of like Bieber fans that were really disappointed. All right. Last one. What's your go-to Starbucks drink?
My go-to Starbucks drink is probably okay. It's a red eye.
Okay.
So red eye is like black coffee with a shot of espresso with heavy cream.
Okay.
Super good.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
I knew you're a coffee fan.
I am.
But I know you don't normally go to Starbucks.
How did you know that?
Because you told me that one time. You said you always go to like different places.
Yeah, I like to go to like the small town coffee shops.
There you go. All right. A red eye. Okay. All right. Well, let's dive in. Thank you for humoring me and playing my little game. Share a little bit about how you created Heaven's Roar. So I'd love for you even just to share that, like, your class and with Jeff, who's often on the podcast and a lot of our listeners would know, kind of walk us through that of how this came about and what's the goal of the organization of Heaven's Roar.
Okay, so Heaven's Roar was originally a senior project that came to life. So when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I just graduated this past spring. And so the spring semester, we had a project. We were supposed to create a ministry and just build that out and be able to create a plan that it could actually be effective. And so I created out this ministry called Heaven's Roar and realized that it was actually something that I could do. And so I was like, well, why don't I actually put it into practice and do it? And so I built out this plan and was able to actually just start implementing it into a real life situation. And so that's where it was born. And in a class project. So if you're in school, you're going to college, it's important to actually pay attention to those type of things because you could actually
you never know.
use them. Yeah, it was actually really cool. So
what was this class? Who was your prof?
Yeah, so Jeff Bogue was my professor, and that class was called Senior Seminar, I believe. So it was just like a wrap-up class for like my entire degree. Yeah. And the whole class was basically put around this project that we were supposed to put. And we had the freedom to choose like whatever ministry we wanted to build out. And so I have had like 5+ years of experience just in social media marketing. And I realized the effects that social media has on Gen Z and on people. And I was trying to think of like a passion that I have, and I thought of that. And I'm like, well, how could I build a ministry around social media? And what would that even look like? And so I started creating this idea of Heaven's Roar, and it became out of a school project into reality, which was really cool.
So just to give context to our listeners, Victoria is a Grace College Akron student, which here in Akron, you can get a fully accredited ministry degree in partnership with Grace College. Through our Akron program. So that's what you were doing. And in this senior seminar class with the Momentum Ministry Partners president, Jeff Bogue, he's also the senior pastor of Grace Church. He often says, I think he said this even on the podcast, that he wants that to be the hardest class that you would take because it's your completion class, being a senior. And so as you're in that class and you're trying to put like, here's an action plan in ministry together, what were some of those like foundational principles that the bottom line things that you put into Heaven's Roar that now you're still using and actually implementing? What does the organization itself look like, the social media platform, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, so Heaven's Roar is an online space. It's only online right now, and it's it was created at the beginning of 2023, so last year, and it was built in order to help Gen Z and Gen Alpha understand the impact that they can have and actually do have online, and the ways that they can reach their peers by building a community on in that space. And so the class was really built on discipleship and talked a lot about discipleship. And so how this ministry was built was all based on discipleship, which is really cool because relationship is how you're going to then build disciples. And so that is what Heaven's Roar was built on. And just the process of creating it was really cool because you're able to see people and people pouring into other people and seeing like discipleship take place just from somebody having a relationship with somebody else.
Yeah.
So
now are these students like you said it's an online platform, so primarily your Instagram, maybe TikTok, other places. What you're trying to do is help equip them to do what in those contexts? How are they reaching their peers? Are they reaching people that they know? Are they reaching people that they don't know? Walk us through that.
Okay, so Heaven's Roar was originally created as a space to encourage my own peers and love on my own peers and help them feel seen. And I wanted to reach my friends for the gospel. I wanted them to know Jesus, to know that he loves them, to know that they're seen as a person. And I thought that social media was an effective way to do this because I knew that a lot of my peers, being Gen Z, were on social media. And so I thought this would be a great way to reach them. And then I quickly realized that this would only affect the people that I was actually in contact with. And so in reality, the niche that I'm in, the space that I'm in is very small compared to the huge picture of what social media actually is. I mean, when you look at social media, there's so many different niches, so many different interests, that things that people are interested in. And so when I look at the spaces that I would be able to affect, it would only be where I am currently. And so I thought of, if that is how we're going to affect my peers, my social media peers, then what about all the other spaces in social media? How are we going to actually reach that area? And so I started thinking of, well, it's going to take a lot of people who aren't necessarily in the same area, in the same third place room, and actually is going to take them going into their spaces, into the niche that they're in, and then affecting those people who they have contact with. Because I may not have contact with somebody that you do because we're in different spaces and different niches. And so it looked like just thinking that through and figuring out social media is such a wide variety because it's a huge space where anybody can be a part of it. But in reality, there's so many different little sections that I may never actually touch. And so how can we be most effective on social media? Well, it looks like involving a lot of different people. And maybe they're not going to be the same. Maybe they're going to have different interests, but that's actually better because you then have influence over somebody who is interested in something that I am not. And so I can affect them the way that you could.
I like it.
So,
all right, explain to our audience. We probably have a lot of pastors, maybe parents listening to this.
Yeah.
Explain what you mean when you say like helping them identify what their niche is, what that third room, like what are those different segments? Maybe give us some examples of what like area or part of Instagram maybe that you would be a part of that you might reach that would be different from somebody else.
Okay. So I'll explain what a third place room is, but I'll explain it in
perfect.
Yeah, in the context of it. So you've heard of the third place.
Yep.
And so the first place would be home. The second place would be school or work. And then the third place is where you would spend your free time. And so a lot of times, at least for like my parents' generation, that was like spending time at the mall. That was the roller rink. That was the movies. That was anywhere that you could go that was almost hosted to create a fun environment for you to spend time with your friends and family.
Yeah.
And
sports team, work.
Yeah, exactly. Like different third places that were just outside of work, school, or home. And so that was really big. And I know like we still go to those places, obviously, but we don't spend 4+ hours there. And guess what? People, especially like the research that I've done is Gen Z and Gen Alpha spend 4+ hours on social media every single day. So social media is now becoming the third place where people spend their free time. So they get home from work or school, they're sitting on their couch and they're on social media. They're interacting with people, but it's not in-person connections. And so that's what the third place is. And so I started thinking of like, how do we explain social media as a third place when you go there and there's so many different sections you could be in? So I started thinking of it as a long hallway. So social media is a very long hallway with lots and lots of different rooms. And each of these rooms are different niches or different like interests. And so there could be a gamer's room, there's a horseback riding room, there's baking, there's you name it, really anything you could be interested in, there's a room for it on social media. And there's going to be other people in that room because they're also interested in it. And so the third place room is the place that you're interested in, the niche that you're in, and that's where you're spending your time. Yeah. And so I think of like the third place as an environment where there's people who are interested in the same topic, who are spending time in that room. Now, where it gets a little tricky is there's Jack and Jill bathrooms between all the different rooms. There's people who are interested in gaming could also be interested in whatever, really anything. And so their room is connected to another room. So your reach doesn't just happen in your room. It also happens, it goes into the next room that you're interested in. Right. So when you think of like algorithms, this kind of bleeds into social media and that realm of things. But when you think of algorithms, it feeds you exactly what you're looking for. Yeah. My mom the other day called me and she's like, Victoria, you will not believe this. She's like, I was just watching this cat video. She's like, I'm like, she likes cats, but she's not crazy about them. And it was just a funny video and she watched it all the way through. And so the algorithm thought, she loves cats. And so it started feeding her every other video was a cat video. And she's like, I don't want to see all these cat videos. Like, what in the world? And I'm like, Mom, you watched a video. The algorithm sees you as liking that. So they're going to feed it to you. Yeah. And so really it's just like whatever third place room you're in is what you're going to either be fed. It's also what you're outputting. So anything that you're outputting, the algorithm reads that and says, okay, this person is in this section, this niche. They're going to feed your content to those people. So it's really all connected. It's actually very fascinating to see how it actually works. And so you can be in multiple rooms at a time, but I just think of social media as a long hallway with lots of different rooms and lots of different niches and opportunities to be in rooms with different people.
I love that. I love that analogy and that picture. And just for our maybe boomer audience or the older generations, we're not talking about physical rooms.
Exactly.
So I was thinking like, oh man, for some people, they're like, where are these rooms at on Instagram?
Literally, no, exactly.
Like, it is, you're exactly right. Like the when you understand the algorithm of social media right now, like I'm, for whatever reason, like I'm obsessed with like the DIY projects. And so like, that's all my Facebook videos are. And then I remember like watching, my family sent like in our group text, a video of like an owl's nest or something. And like these, and so then I started getting all these nature things. Yeah. And now I get like, then, you know, that led into like all these other things. And now I'm getting, now all my Facebook and Instagram videos are all like, animals like attacking other animals in the wild.
Oh my gosh.
And I just keep watching them. And so that's where I am.
Geographic stuff.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
That's full look into my life. But like, how then once you can identify like what these rooms are, right? Yeah. Your point of interest, the things that you're interested in, your hobbies, the things that you're enjoying, you know, whether it's Major League Baseball or sewing or DIY or whatever it is. How are you aiming to equip these students to make Jesus make sense, to live on mission in those rooms? What does that look like? Yeah. How would you help them think of that or frame that conversation? Yeah.
So the first thing, this is just like an interesting statistic, and there's lots of statistics that you could literally Google and find, but almost 70% of Gen Z and Gen Alpha say that social media is an integral part of their daily lives. And so when you think of that, if this is their third place, then of course it's an integral part because that's where they're building connections and that's where they are spending their time. And so just think of that as I'm talking, because this is their life essentially. This is where we spend our time. This is where we build friendships and connections. And so when you're thinking of it that way, it doesn't sound as like not real life, if that makes sense, because it is on a screen. But the thing is that people who are spending their time and seeing this as their third place room, it's like this is another world, but it's so meaningful to you because you built all your friendships and connections there. So if we're touching it like that, that's the ground base. it adds like a value to it because people are seeing it as the space that they spend their time. It's not just a screen and a phone. It's actually like where they build connections. So starting off, they are in their third place room. Okay. And so they're there, and Heaven's Roar is seeking to help Gen Z and Gen Alpha understand how they can actually be effective in that, because you'd think like, okay, the average teenager is posting on social media just because they have their friends following them from school, and they just want to stay connected there. And so how can they actually be in a third place room? Well, every single social media user is in a third place room because it's what you're putting out and what you're intaking. And so automatically the algorithm places you in that. And so the ways that I would say to like a youth pastor, a student ministries leader, a teen parent, to help a teen understand that they can have an impact on social media and the ways that they can do that is I would start off with just helping them understand, one, we need to understand that the conversations that we're having around social media are very important. If we're starting at ground zero and we're saying that this is an integral part of their day, this is very valuable to them, then downgrading it or putting it on a level where it's like, oh, it's not real life or anything, even though it is not real life, it's on the screen.
Right.
That's going to automatically tune them out because this is something that matters to them. And so having very careful conversations around that too is very important. The second thing I would say is understanding that we need to have conversations about how social media can be harmful. There's people that are preying on students. There's that side of things that it can be very harmful. It also can be harmful in the ways of just understanding that there is so much mental health issues like anxiety, depression, all of that, comparison, any of that type of stuff. A lot of it, not all of it, is derived from social media, obviously, but a lot of it is amplified by social media because this is something that I can post on here and I can show exactly what I want everyone to see. And so it's easy to look at it and compare your life to it and be like, why am I not living this way or have this or XYZ, whatever it is. So there's a few different things. Obviously, there's the making sure the conversations around it, you're being careful because this is very important to them. Secondly, it's just having conversations that are hard because, there's a lot of negative things that can come from social media, and it's important to understand that and to have conversations around that. But then thirdly, I think it's really important to have positive conversations, that social media can actually be used as a tool and it can actually be used to reach people for the gospel. It can be fun. It's fun to do trending dances and all of that type of stuff. It's fun. And it is a way to connect with friends. And so having conversations in multiple different ways around it, I think is very crucial because it isn't just one. It is all of those. It's all of the above. And so making sure that we're just having conversation around that area as a youth leader, as a parent, and we are just touching base in all of those areas is really important because every teen is going to be in every space of that. They're going to see the comparison and anxiety and depression coming because of those type of things. They're also going to see the really fun side of things. And so touching base in all those areas, I think is really important. And I think that reaching teens where they are is super important in those areas. And I'm not talking about knowing trends, doing the trending dances or knowing the trending songs. I'm not talking about that at all because I'm sorry to break it to you. That is not going to be relatable to teens. But meeting them where they are and having those conversations and understanding, oh, you feel anxiety because at the touch of a finger, I can know every single thing going on across the world. And that's why I'm feeling this load of anxiety on my shoulders because God was the only one who was ever supposed to know all things.
Right.
I'm carrying the weight of that. And me as a 14-year-old girl should never be carrying the weight of that. Me as a 16-year-old boy should never be carrying the weight of that. And so, depression is going to come, anxiety is going to come, comparison. And so having those conversations is important and meeting them where they are, not by doing training dances, but by actually being like, I understand, maybe not understand, but I can see why you would be feeling anxiety because of that. And then helping them navigate through that is super important.
Yeah. So Victoria, what does it look like as you work with teenagers and help them think like, in how do they have influence in their third place in the TikTok accounts that they follow as for a lot of us, I think it's important to understand the context in which you're discussing here. You're assuming that these students are not just consuming the content that's being created, but they're engaging with it.
Yeah.
So they're direct messaging the creator. They're following that account. They're going back to the newest videos that those people are posting, and they're engaging with it. They're commenting, and then they're interacting with other people that are commenting. They're building relationships even with the others who are commenting on those people's posts, where then they're making new friendships, and they're connecting then with those people because they agree with that person's comment, or they identify with something, and there's a path that they're following as they engage. They're not just consuming, they're contributing as well. Okay, so that's a key foundational piece in this conversation. How do you coach those students? How would you encourage them? Yes, I love this, like, don't get sucked into the comparison trap and the anxiety that can come with that. But on the flip side, how do you leverage it for the gospel? How do you encourage students to make Jesus make sense and understand how do they have spiritual influence in that third place?
So I like how you explain them interacting, because a lot of times there's a two type of people that are in this room. There's the type of person who's, let's think of in person, for example. There's a type of person who's going to input into the conversation, who's the life of the party, who's there all the time, the person who's posting all the time. Okay. There's the person who's interacting all the time. There's also the person who is silently in the corner observing everything going on. Neither one of these are wrong, but there's just the two types of people. And so there's that on social media as well. There's a person who's, interacting all the time, posting all the time, that type of stuff. There's also the person who is not, but is more so just intaking. So there's the two types. And so along those lines, I think that when you see that and you understand, okay, I'm still in a room. And so if I am a Christ follower and I want to affect people for the gospel and influence people for the gospel in the room that I'm in, the spaces that I'm in, and the videos that I'm commenting on, whatever else interacting with, then what is the most effective way to do that? Well, I would say that when you walk into Starbucks, for example, you're not going to immediately go up to somebody and be like, want to read a Bible plan with me?
Right.
No, you're going to go up to them and be like, hey, nice shirt. Like, where'd you get your hat? Whatever. You're going to start conversation. You're going to build a relationship with that person. And so it's the same on social media. You're going to build relationship. You're going to be present in that room. You're going to be a face there. You're going to have a platform there. It's that type of stuff. No matter how many followers you have, you could have 1,000 followers. You could have 0 followers and still have an impact, because your videos and your content will go outside of your followers. So I think that it's just important to realize that it's not just about like posting about Jesus. It's not being like, Jesus loves you all the time, that type of stuff. Although there's a time and place for that. It's also just about the presence that you have and the way that you interact with people, and living above reproach in that area and that type of stuff. And so it's not just the content you're interacting with or the content that you're putting out, but it's also the way that you are holding yourself in that space, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to go in the room and drop an F-bomb and then be like, Jesus loves you, but I'm going to be in that space and be in that presence and showing through my actions, Jesus loves you, and you're seen. And a lot of teens and a lot of people, let's just blanket that in our culture, do not feel seen and do not feel loved. And although they're walking past the same person at work every single day. And so I think that it's important that we put on glasses to be able to see this person shows up every day on social media, but what is their actual life like behind the scenes? Or this person I see at work every single day, but what do they actually feel? And I think social media, it's 2 screens, and you can't really see how that person is feeling or what they're going through in their life. And so it's important to realize that it's a person. A number, it represents a person. And so it's not just another account that follows you, or it's not just another account that you're interacting with, but it's actually a person who has real feelings, who God created on purpose, and he created for a purpose to bring people from life to death. Death to life. Oh my gosh. From death to life. Like, we literally were created for that purpose. And so if we can help other people see that they were created for that purpose too, like, how amazing is that? And so Heaven's Roar's goal is to help people see that, yes, they have that impact online, but the biggest thing is to actually bring that back to in person. So I'll give an example of this. I knew somebody who he was really into gaming, and he would game like online just with other people.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it and stuff, and he was like, it's crazy because I know these guys that I game with, but I like don't ever see them. And so he started thinking of ways, and he loves Jesus, so he started thinking of ways that he could like build relationship with them, and he was doing that online, obviously in the gaming room. I am not in that space, so I don't know like any of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But he was like, how can I like bring this to in person to actually build meaningful discipleship relationships? So he started hosting a gaming night. I think it was like once a week, and had ordered pizza, had the guys over. They still game together, however you say that. But together in a living room. And then we're able to have conversations, and not necessarily about Jesus, but maybe about Jesus, but actually just helping those guys feel seen and helping them feel loved.
Yeah.
Just by hosting and having them over. And so that's one way. Another girl that I knew, she was really into running, and she built this really cool running, like centered room, third place room on social media. And she would post like daily videos about how she was running, whatever else. And people were really interactive with that because they liked it. She built a community, and she realized that she could actually take that community and bring it in person. And so once a month, she had a running club, and she would host it. People would come, she would run with them. They would do miles together and have conversations while they were running. Yeah. And it was really cool to see that, because it's like, we are seeing you're building community online in this space, but then you're actually bringing it to in person. And that can be on a smaller scale. It doesn't have to be in a big group or hosting something like that, but it could be, oh, you interacted with this person online who goes to your school. Okay, I'm going to invite them to come to this event with me, or to come do this with me, because we bonded over a common interest. So it doesn't have to be something big, but it can be something on a smaller scale as well. Yeah. But it's just bringing that interaction online, building that, using social media as a tool to do that, and then actually bringing it to in person to be able to build that discipleship relationship and do those things.
I love that. So go a little bit deeper for those of us who have social media and maybe we're just not active on it. Like that would be me. And I'm sure some of our listeners, maybe youth pastors and parents, I'm sure students listen to this as well. You're like, I've been quiet. I've been in the room, but I've been quiet. Yeah. How do you help them find the room that they should be in, or an interest thing, or something that maybe they're passionate about? And how do you use your social media and to begin posting to create that pathway where you can point people to Jesus? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
So first I'm going to start off and say that it's not a bad thing if you don't either have social media or you don't want to use it, because I completely get that.
For sure.
I feel like there's more of like a trend going on where people don't have social media, and I think that's kind of cool, just building the in-person like relationships and stuff. So if you don't have it, that's totally fine.
We're not saying go get TikTok.
Like,
yes.
Please, like, enjoy not having
That's
it.
That's a good clarification.
But if you are like sitting there, like you're saying, like in the corner and being more of the intaker and not the output, I guess I would first start off with saying, as a Christ follower, like, if you want to make an impact in that space, obviously it's not like you have to or anything, but if you are in that space and you want to start making an impact, I think I would start with something that I know and I like. So for me, maybe it would be like fashion, or it would be the digital space or something like that. Build a community around that, and then begin thinking of ways that you can start to bring that in person, or build a community within that interest. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like thinking of something that you like, something that you're good at, something that you have interest in, and just start using it, whether that's posting about it or whether that's just interacting with people who are in that space. But I think that it just takes a lot of just intentionality. Yes. A lot of times I think, especially within the social media space, it's said to like, well, just swing it, like you can wing it, you'll be fine. But I think that is completely wrong. It takes a lot of strategy. It takes a lot of intentionality to actually make a difference in a space like that. Whether you're trying to make a difference for the gospel or if you're just trying to build a platform, it takes intentionality and strategy, like either way. And so imagine like actually trying to make a a difference for the gospel and for Jesus, then you really got to be strategic, because it's easy to swipe by a video. It's easy to block somebody or to do something. And so how are you going to be strategic about that and actually use the influence that you have in the space that you have to not only just be like, Jesus loves you, but actually building a community and then around a common interest, and then thinking of ways, how can I move that to in person? And that's exactly what Heaven's Roar is doing, is helping teens see, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is what I like doing. This is who I am. And then moving that to, how can I build a community around that? How can I build this up on social media? And then how can I move that to in person? And what would that look like? And it's just helping strategize that together.
I love that. Thank you, because basically you're talking some of us off the ledge. I'm the 40-something that should not be doing TikTok dance trends. That would be weird, right? You would probably look at that and go like, Eric, you're trying way too hard. But if I got on TikTok and was making videos talking about coffee or leadership, or so you're saying stick to things that are in your sweet spot, be yourself, be genuine and authentic. Don't think you have to fit into some mold that is outside of your box.
No.
Yeah.
If you're not a pastor, don't feel like you have to preach.
Good. Yes. Very good. All right. So last question here, kind of in this context. What resources would you recommend for our listeners as they're trying to help students just think this through? How do they engage, interact with those resources then?
Okay, so the first resource that I have used multiple times is the YouVersion Bible app, and I'm sure that you've heard of it, but maybe not understand that the actual depth of wealth that it has. There are so many Bible plans of so many different topics on this Bible app. And so using that as a tool, I think, for yourself to grow your relationship with Jesus, but then also to use it with students as discipleship relationship, or students to use with their friends, is great. I will say, back to the Starbucks analogy, I think just being careful and knowing the time and place of offering that is super important, because obviously you're not going to walk into Starbucks and be like, want to do this Bible plan with me? Right. But maybe you've built that community online. Maybe you've started talking with somebody there and you realize, oh, this person shared with me that they're struggling with this, or we talked about this common interest. And so maybe I should invite them to this Bible plan with me. So it's like that, building that relationship first and realizing, they may be interested in this as well. Maybe I'll invite them to do that. But it doesn't look like just inviting them to do it right away. But that is a great resource to use. And I think that this entire topic is not revolutionary. It's just, but it's also not easy.
It's just thinking about it differently.
Yeah, it's not revolutionary, but it's not easy. And so you got to be strategic. You got to think of different ways, but you also need to be careful, because obviously, I'm not saying that's one thing I need to make sure is you shouldn't just meet up with anybody, build community with anybody. I think that teen parents and then youth leaders as well can help navigate that, because this device does allow you with social media to interact with anybody and to virtually meet anybody. And so that can be good, but that can also be very bad. So just being careful. But that is, I think the YouVersion Bible app is a great resource to use for when you're building discipleship relationships and you're bringing that in person. What could it look like to actually bring the Word of God into it? And how could you then use that resource?
Oh, that's so good. I think it makes total sense too, because not only are you you're already, when you're meeting people online, and as you're learning those topics or the issues that they're struggling with, right? When somebody says hey, I just dealt with a breakup and I got betrayed, right? And you're like, hey, here's a YouVersion plan that talks about being betrayed, or here's when somebody's like, I'm so anxious and I'm so nervous, and would you do this 3-day Bible reading plan on anxiety and how we can bring our requests to God? And you're already online using something else that's online to help introduce God talk in that conversation. I think that's so smart.
The cool thing about YouVersion too is when you're doing those Bible plans, you can actually do them, sync them up and do them together. And then there's an option at the end to discuss it. So it's super cool for interacting with people and not just being here, read this book, or here, read this Devo or something, but it's actually let's do it together. I may not be struggling with this, but I would love to read it with you.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you, Victoria. Well, for our listeners who maybe have follow-up questions or something they're wanting to plug in and connect with Heaven's Roar, where can they find you? How can they connect?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's Heaven's Roar. I think it's .co or co.
Okay.
So that's the username. And then my personal username is just Victoria Mcallister. So either way, Instagram's a great place.
We'll link to that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
So thank you, Victoria, for being a part of this conversation, helping us make Jesus make sense, even in an online world.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to have influence in those places, and we want to come alongside and be your trusted partner. So whether you're a pastor, a parent of teenagers, and as you're trying to make sense of this, we want to be a trusted resource. So thank you, Victoria, for being a part of this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you found it to be valuable. And if you did, would you share it with someone else in your network who might enjoy it? Also, would you please go on and subscribe, rate, and review it? That way you don't miss any more, and somebody else will be able to find it too. Also, because we want to be your trusted resource, if you have a question or topic that you would like us to discuss on an upcoming episode, send that to us via email to info@buildmomentum.org, or you can send us a DM on any of our social media platforms. You can find us there at Momentum Ministry Partners. Also, if you need more information on our ministry, be sure to check out our website at buildmomentum.org. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you next time.